Welcome to Zenith.
We are finally starting the Zenith series.
And welcome to Zenith VR.
Zenith the Last City finally released.
Woo, baby!
But it just feels so good to be able to fly by and just drop these enemies like...
Oh, I can't believe I caught that.
A cyber ninja.
A cyber ninja.
Cyber ninja.
3 times inventory space. Raised $35 million.
And today we're going to be checking out the Celestial Throne update, which includes 3 new dungeons, 3 new raids.
Climb up to the Celestial Throne.
We're going to be talking about all the new updates with Zenith, of course, with this 1.2 Legends Untold update.
Today I just want to talk to you a little bit about the upcoming winter event in Zenith the Last City.
Zenith the Last City is 1 year old, and it's been one crazy ride. We've gone months in update droughts only to be showered with the most packed content drops possible. This past year has only seen growth for the game's community, and it's my duty to look back on Zenith's first year on the market to see how the game evolved. But as an alpha and beta tester, it's only fair to take you on Zenith's full journey, starting with the alpha. Zenith's alpha was the first time the public got its hands on the game. Accessed by purchasing higher tiers of pre-orders, you gained access to a week-long play session of this fresh new VRMMO. It was magical to see a game like World of Warcraft or RuneScape where a vast open world surrounds you and players wander in real time, but from the perspective of the player rather than a top-down view. However, compared to the Zenith we know today, it looked like a completely different game. For the time being, it was all we needed, but looking back, we can safely say that the game is evolving successfully. The alpha had many issues and bugs that needed to be fixed. Quite a number of abilities had a lack of icons, the world of Zenith ended at the Radiant Coast, and even the Radiant Coast hadn't been fully developed yet. Amura's Tears looked like a generic blue rock, and some of the names on the map reveal were slightly different from the names we know today. The enemies of Zenith were exceptionally broken. They would follow you everywhere, no matter how far you ran from it, it would always find its way to you. You could teleport away, fast travel across the map, exit the game, fly to the other side of the world, go to Mars, and the enemy would still find you. Enemies would jump around and have inconsistent movement, and if an enemy activated an attack on you, you could not dodge it. You could teleport 10 feet away and you'd still get hit. Thankfully, that has been long fixed, and dodging is a key component of the game. But one exploit took the first alpha by storm. It still stands today, yet in a fixed state. The event that lay here once was a meeting ground for every Zenith player on every server. Why? This event was bugged.
This is the ledge that I chill on just to rack up XP and they can't hurt you up here. So you just farm. I want to farm, dude. Finish the event.
There was no respawn timer after completing the event, leading to a mass amount of players camping around the middle of the area, either to help slay the enemies or just get easy XP by AFKing. I took part in this and ended up gaining over 10 levels in just a couple hours. It 100% took the fun out of grinding and exploring new leveling techniques, but nothing beats the satisfaction of breaking the game. Alpha 2 was similar to the first, but added iconic features we still use today. Gliding quests and ziplines to be exact. It gave players a better option for gaining height and a new quest style letting you soar freely, like you just gained the power to fly. Zenith's gliding is exhilarating, but its true potential would not be realized until the beta. What I was most excited for was cooking. With a handful of unlockable recipes, you were given the ability to create meals out of the ingredients you collected across your journey. You could chop, boil, and fry many different types of ingredients to create edible items that gave you helpful stat boosts. Many months passed before we had any word on when the beta would begin, but on December 2nd, 2021, the date was finally announced for just 2 weeks later on the 18th. Although the second beta would not have this rule, the first beta was unique in the sense that it could not be recorded or streamed. A little NDA came into place. But if you did have the deluxe pre-order, you could swap to the second beta if you wanted to make some content for it. New locations were revealed, including the new starting area, a grim and infested dystopian city called the Underside. Synthesis and enhancement stations were added, giving players a way not just to craft more powerful armor with mod drops, but to enhance them further with magic dust found in the chests scattered around Zenith. Beta 2 also had one change that was never done again, a max level increase to 45. It was likely due to players being more familiar with the game and some hardcore fans maybe even finishing the game, but it also helped test the future scenario of increasing the max level post-release. It would be really difficult to increase the max level after creating so much endgame content based around level 40, but with level 50 armor sets, who's to say that won't happen in the future? And then we get to what might possibly be Zenith's most iconic removed feature, super gliding.
It just feels so good to be able to fly by and just drop these enemies like it's nothing. Finding out your accuracy and whatever else while you're gliding around, like at these high speeds. And it adds such a new feature to the game that, you know, it's all on your experience.
With the introduction of sensitive gliding, the static one-speed gliding was improved to a dynamic controlled gliding, letting you dive bomb into the ground and fling yourself right back up before hitting the ground. But there was an easy way to exploit the new gliding. Super gliding is a special technique where you repeatedly go in and out of gliding. Specifically because exiting the gliding motion gives you a slight amount of extra momentum, so if you're able to get back into the gliding motion right after, you keep the extra momentum, and it leads to a constant increase in speed and, quite literally, the ability to fly. The first recorded super glide tutorial, or test I should say, I can trace back to the Viking Reaper, where he tested the standard, new sensitive gliding, and his own super gliding technique, realizing the potential of super gliding. And only one day later did we get a Wake and Toast tutorial, refining this new technique into scooter booping. He realized that elevation could be gained with this technique, and with a bit of practice you could be doing all of your attacks and spells in the air. It raised not only the skill ceiling of Zenith, but how fun the game was. But after all, it's a bug, and it ended up being removed. January 27th, 2022 will be known around the world as the day people could dust off their paperweights, and have another reason to pick up VR. Zenith The Last City released today and made waves around VR. It was extremely popular, jumping to the top sellers on all storefronts. It was so popular with so many players logging in that these servers were extremely overloaded.
Wow. Servers have been down and stuff. This is amazing.
I tried for hours to get in, but just gave up until the next day. And when that next day came, I ran straight to my headset to enter the world of Zenith. Zenith's release was suspiciously similar to the beta. Most of the important features Zenith is now known for were introduced in the beta, and the release fine-tuned issues like a few abilities having no icons, Amara's Tears being fully implemented, and finally giving us the full map. The maximum level, 45, was reduced back to 40, and everyone started fresh, traversing the world of Zenith with a new cast of characters surrounding them. It was truly magical to see this game I've been monitoring for nearly a year have all of its servers close to full. Safe to say, I had a magical time in the beginning of the game's lifespan, just wanting to test the limits of the game and experiment with different ideas. But as time goes on and you complete more and more quests, you start wanting more, and the developers were quick to show us more.
A cyber ninja.
A cyber ninja. Cyber ninja.
The developers were quick to give us a sneak peek into their ideas for the future of the game, as they posted a mock-up of the coveted third class, named Cyber Ninja. Wielding a bow and hookshot, it adds a new dynamic to Zenith. A stealthy and movement-based class, a contrast from the other two classes with a small amount of movement opportunities. Now, revealing the Cyber Ninja this early had its drawbacks. Many didn't catch on that this was only a concept, with little work done in-game, so people anxiously waited to see if the next update would include this class. As more updates came out, more people were wondering, where was the Cyber Ninja? That question was the backbone of the community's mysteries, and today it can finally be answered because the developers introduced their live roadmap, showing that the Cyber Ninja would be released in Major Update 1.3, which as of today is the undated next major update. Although this update was considered a minor update, it marked the beginning of Zenith's much needed improvements. At this point in time, there was one major flaw to the game. It required so much grinding. You would bounce between events one after the other, repeatedly slaying monsters to finally get your hands on just like one more quest. But this update introduced new side quests, 23 to be exact. With new quests for plenty of levels, it reduces the time needed to grind events and increases the time spent actually exploring and experiencing Zenith. This would creep into future updates as more quests would be released and adjusted to make sure the questline was fluid, fun, and resourceful. This update also added a feature that isn't as prominent as it once was. Overworld dungeons and invasions were added in this update. Although overworld dungeons are still run through by groups, heading to an invasion most of the time reveals a dormant event with no users. Invasions were once the meeting place of all level 40s, the spot to grind after you completed the game. It contained a key material to making the endgame armor and weaponry at the time, but it took quite some time to acquire. And with the introduction of better armor with the future Celestial Throne update, these invasions became obsolete unless you wanted to collect every piece of gear in the game. And as a little bonus, the PTR was implemented only 6 days later, a space to test the new updates before they were released. It allowed the developers to find and catch bugs and exploits before the update went live, while rewarding players with early playtests. $35 million. This was the amount that investors gave to the developers of Zenith. With this money, VRMMO VR is able to double down on Zenith, being able to hire over twice as many employees, allowing more updates and more improvements. As a VR game redefining an existing genre, there was an incredible potential to revolutionize the VR market, and investors saw that and pitched in. This game isn't going anywhere. Players were worried about Zenith. Updates were coming out slower than the community anticipated, and without a roadmap like we have now, people just didn't know what to expect next. But the developers really stepped up the pace after ironing out the bugs and issues from the months after the launch. This first taste of bug fixes gave us a plethora of inventory space. Players' inventories were filled up with the amount of gatherables and materials to collect, requiring you to have to constantly clear your space for new items. But today, they finally gave us multiple pages of inventory filling in multiple categories. This also paved the way for a key addition later in the game, the Cosmetic tab. Referral gear already gave the Cosmetic tab some time in the spotlight, but additional storage was added for future Cosmetic grind sessions. June 11th marks the day Zenith exited its infancy to give us a taste of what the game will become in the near future. On this day, the game's first major update was released, the Celestial Throne update. Gone were the days of being stuck at level 40 with no goal in sight, and in were 6 dungeons and raids to add many hours of extra gameplay, and new armor as the next goal of the game. But these dungeons and raids did not come easy, you had to earn the option to play them. The dungeons required you to play through them in a non-instance version. All you had to do was go to the location in the dungeon, slay some enemies, attune the crystal, and repeat until you reach the boss. Then you unlock the instance dungeons, able to be played at will from just the menu with a few other teammates for rewards. However, the bigger picture was the journey to unlock the raids. In comes the star of the show, the Celestial Throne. A daunting climb that can take upwards of tens of minutes if you don't know the quickest route. And that isn't even factoring in respawning. Plenty of hazards and even the risk of falling is plentiful, and it took me quite the number of attempts to reach the top. But the platform ride to the finish is a magical one. Taking in the many failed attempts you just had and combining them into one big effort to reach the top. It was a great accomplishment. The dungeons and raids are similar to a Zelda dungeon, a mix of strong enemies and tactical puzzles, leading to one big boss fight to get the coveted rewards. You can use these rewards, usually currency of some kind, to craft the new, extremely powerful armor. There were also important additions such as functioning headgear, and dailies and weeklies made their debut here. And that could have been the end of this segment, but alas, the developers had to fix one of the most engaging bugs that many people have taken advantage of. Found all the way back in the beta, it goes by many names. Super gliding, speed flying, scooter booping, but that matters no more as it was cut from the game entirely. If you attempt it now, you are halted in place, just wasting your stamina. This wasn't a change many were happy with, as the high skill ceiling movement added so much more technicality to Zenith. But this had to be done. Super gliding would 100% ruin the puzzles present in the dungeons, raids, and even the Celestial Throne itself. Being able to fly upwards makes it so you wouldn't have to adventure up this throne's puzzles. They compensated by buffing gliding a tad, but nothing could replace what we once had. Two months went by without a meaningful update. We weren't too sure what the devs were cooking in the background. But in October, they showed us a new welcome addition that added so much more personality to Zenith. Cosmetic armor was glorified in this update. It wasn't added, as referral gear already took the crown on that, but cosmetic armor was made a staple with the addition of the Neoware and Sunshine armor sets about a month apart. These sets were bright and sleek in design and were able to override the look of your armor, keeping your stats while giving it a fresh look. Similar to Celestial Throne armor sets, you needed to grind the armor's own currency to unlock them. After accepting the questline, you'd be tasked with finding Neoware or Sunshine specific world events to complete and acquire currency from. The introduction of cosmetics gets me really optimistic about the future of the game. Little additions like this let you customize and add personality to your character, making it more true to you than ever before. And as months went by, waiting patiently for another update, we got hit with one of the biggest content drops ever seen. Zenith released their second major update, Legends Untold. The Celestial Throne update was focused on the endgame, adding tons of content and rewards, but Legends Untold was made to address features throughout every stage of the game. The entire beginning of the game was reworked, gone were the days of spawning in the underside with a tiny tutorial, and in came the Academy, a new location dedicated to teaching you the ins and outs of Zenith. With fancy new dialogue screens, you got to learn how your weapons and spells worked, how to utilize movement, and learning the ins and outs of collecting. Until BAM! You're attacked and you have to utilize your movement to escape the Academy. After escaping the Academy, you will then realize the questline isn't the same as it used to be. The early game questline was adjusted, cutting out plenty of questlines while adding some new ones and adjusting some others. It makes the intro way less cluttered and shortens it so you can level up faster to get to the height of the game quicker. And speaking of the height of the game, they add on more to it. The Outlaw Grove and the Twilight Athenaeum are Zenith's new dungeons and raids respectively. The Outlaw Grove was designed for level 10s and is unlocked in the Galian Valley, letting the new players experience the excitement that dungeons bring earlier in the game. And adding in a new raid in general lets high-level players have another reason to continue playing the game. Zenith also added the ability to play dungeons and raids with half the players for smaller parties, and added kill objectives to prevent a speedrun past all the enemies just to fight the boss. The next key addition to Zenith was creature catching. After purchasing capsules at the city, throw them near a critter and activate the capsule with the trigger to see it get encapsulated and try to break free. And if it does break out, you just keep trying until you catch it. Once you catch a specific breed enough times, it becomes your pet. Any catchable critter can become your pet, and you can even help them give you stat boosts. Agent rank was introduced, a new way to gain rewards and have a reason to check in on the game every day. It gives an alternate to grinding for certain materials and Zen while testing your skill with challenges. Powerful new armor and weapon sets were added with the inclusion of the Twilight Athenaeum raid, raising the power level potential even more, with a new cosmetic set related to creature catching added as well. The ability to reroll enhancements gained from these and any other piece of gear was also implemented at the same spot you upgrade your gear. With Zen starting to be more utilized, with introductions like creature catching requiring payments per capsule, the developers added and tweaked ways to make Zen faster. Selling your creatures is always an option, but if you're a combat-oriented player, the dungeons and raids had their Zen rewards increased. Then there's always the agent rank that holds Zen rewards every few levels. Then there were additions that weren't as stuck in the spotlight as the previous mentions. Board games made their introduction, with Chess and Connect 4 adding to Zenith's social potential and creating a little relaxation break after an intense boss fight. You could finally delete your characters. As someone who has made plenty of accounts for challenges in the early days of Zenith, I may have just a few extra accounts lying around. The title cosmetic was added, letting you represent an unlocked title. On release, there are only a few titles, so many players have yet to even get one, but as time goes on, titles are being rewarded for participating in events such as dev tests and PTR updates. A handheld camera was added, giving content creators like me an additional option to create stunning shots with. It's almost like a more smooth first-person camera, but I'm able to look separately myself while moving the camera where I want you to see. And to brush on the rest of the update, sword physics were updated, giving the Blade Master swords more reliability when thrown. Your minimap was moved from a button to tapping your wrist in-game. You could finally open chests with your hands. Plenty of the visual effects for most of the classes were redesigned in a higher quality, and full body tracking was implemented if you had a compatible haptic to go with it. The Winter Festival was Zenith's first seasonal event, adding plenty of winter-themed additions and visuals to the game. Snow and winter decorations littered the world, and winter spirits roamed around. A new world event and agent rank challenges were created, giving the new coin currency, Winter Coins. These coins could be traded in for new toys, which were little mystery presents, improved recipes, winter-themed gear, and a special limited-time pet. And this was the final update of the year. And just a short little epilogue to all my dedicated viewers, this year for Zenith was a great year. It might have started off slow, but it really started to pick up the pace in the second half of the year. I'm glad to have such a positive and optimistic community supporting me and Zenith itself. Our patience is paying off as the Cyber Ninja is the focus for the next update. And I hope you continue with me in year 2 to see what Zenith holds for all of us. I appreciate you sticking around. Thank you for watching.